This week I had the opportunity to go sea bass fishing out in the ocean, which is the only place you can actually go sea bass fishing. But I'd never been on the ocean before. I've been in the ocean. I've never been on the ocean. And so we got in a boat and we went out. And it was so funny because one of the guys actually caught a shark by accident. And I texted a picture of it to Carrie. And she was like, "Wait, you're on the ocean?" And evidently she had no idea where I was. And we communicate really well. If I had drowned, she would have been really surprised. You know, it's like, "I thought you were at work. Like, you drowned? Like, how did that happen?" But thankfully, it was fine. But we were out about 10 miles out from the shore. And I like I said, never been out that far. And the ocean is big. Wow. And I just couldn't imagine as I was looking at it, you know, just seeing the endless horizon, what it would be like to be truly out at sea. Right, to be out hundreds, even thousands of miles out there and to truly, you know, just not to see anything because the expanse of it, right, the enormity of it, and it is truly awe-inspiring and breathtaking. And it made me think of something that I read many years ago, that if you want people to build a ship, you don't collect a bunch of supplies and then divvy up jobs and tell them what to do. You start by teaching them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. Over the last several weeks and even a few months now, we've been talking about life as part of God's kingdom. What it is to be part of God's kingdom and the life that he desires for us. And what I've tried to do is not so much tell you what to do, but to paint a picture of the kind of life that God has created you for. Because I'm convinced that until we yearn for the life that only God can give, we will never be willing and prepared to do the hard work of living. Because living is hard. Like, existence is easy, but to truly live, like, that is difficult. It takes hard work, and which is why most people never do it. Most people will sacrifice real life for existence, and we settle into patterns where we're just trying to get by, we're just trying to make it, we just settle for trying to avoid discomfort and challenge and difficulty and just keep the peace and keep everything at bay and status quo, and that's just so much easier, and in doing so, we miss out on stepping into the life that God has created for us to live. Have you ever reached a point in your life where you thought, is this really it? You know, you reach a place in your life where maybe you've accomplished a certain number of things that you thought were really going to impact your life. They were going to change everything. And then you look around and you thought, is this really all my life is for? And I think most of us reach this place at some point in life. Maybe some of you aren't there. I hate to spoil this for you. But most of us will reach this place in life where we look around and we think, surely there has to be more to life than this. I think for some of us, we get there a little sooner than others. Some people it takes a while because they're really gifted. You know, they keep accomplishing things and doing great things and climbing another mountain, and so it takes a while longer for them to finally sort of run out of steam and look around at their surroundings and go, man, I just kept thinking I was gonna make it, and then I've arrived, and is this really all that my life is for? And then some of us, we're just slow learners. And then some of us, we get there a little sooner than other people because we just don't have that much to accomplish. So in my life, I pretty quickly realized that I was only really gonna be able to accomplish so much. I'm not a highly gifted person. And so I was reasonably successful in school and, you know, those types of things. And then I reached this point where I was like, this is it? And I could sort of project in the future. And I knew that even if I was successful in these other ways, I just realized I was still going to be left unsatisfied. That I was still going to look at my life and think, surely there's got to be more to it than this. I think that this crisis of existence is really the universal experience for all of us. That because we have rejected God, we have become disconnected from what life is supposed to be and what life is for. And so this question becomes the question that all of us wrestle with at some point. What is my life for? Surely it has to be more than this, whatever this is. In Matthew 6, Jesus, he begins to address this question for us. What is life for? And he starts by saying that life isn't for anything that doesn't last. Your life isn't for anything that's temporary, that your life is too important to waste on anything less than eternity. He says in verse 19, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's amazing the things that we collect in life, isn't it? When Carrie and I moved into our home here in New Jersey, the couple that moved out, she was a hoarder. And thankfully, it was all gone by the time we got there. But we heard stories from the neighbors about how he spent weeks and months even, while she was living in Florida, he was coming up and just throwing stuff out, like a whole dumpster or two, just throwing stuff out. But even when we moved in, we could see the evidence of what her addiction to holding on to things. We had closets within closets, literally. Like our bedroom had a closet that they'd built closets inside of. And it was just covered with shelves everywhere, shelving. And I took out load after load of shelves that we did not want and did not need. But I can't be too much of a harsh critic, right? Because let's be honest, we've collected a lot of stuff over the years too. I'm guessing you have as well. I will do you a favor. I will not come over and look in your basement if you don't come over and look in my basement. You know, maybe it's your attic, maybe it's your garage, right? We collect, we accumulate so much stuff that we don't need. And it's really depressing to me personally, because I remember this beautiful time in my life when I was in college and I graduated and getting ready to move into my first apartment, and all I had was a backpack and a suitcase. And I think, where did that go? You know, like that was such a beautiful, I didn't own anything. I loved it. It was so great, so freeing. And then along the way, you know, you get married and you have kids and you accumulate more Lego than you can possibly imagine. And there's just so much stuff that we have that we don't need. But there's some things that we collect along the way that we do need. Like they're just part of life. You need those things. For example, I collect a paycheck every month, and I'm very glad and thankful for that, and I don't plan on stopping. Right? I'm not giving that up because I also have 4 children who I need to feed, and I'm not planning on giving any of them up either. Right? So I mean, sometimes I'm tempted, but I want to make sure that I have what I need. And so there's things that we collect that we just need for life. But see, the question that Jesus is raising is not, do we collect treasures? Of course we do. There's things that we have to collect. There's things that we have to have for life. The question is, which treasure controls your heart? Which treasure is the one that you've given your heart to? Which treasure is the treasure that controls all the others? See, there's always one treasure that wins out. There's always one love that whatever it is that you love, it will shape and define and create the parameters for all the other things that you love. And this is why, even though we love lots of things, that someone could say with all sincerity that they love their family so deeply and so desperately, and yet they will sacrifice their family for a promotion or a raise. And they'll say, well, I did that for my family, but actually it was for achievement. It was for status. And we can say, maybe, you know, I love my hometown. I love my hometown. I'm never going to leave my hometown until you meet that person you fall deeply in love with who lives across the country, and you never go back to your hometown again. I see we have different things that we love, different things that we treasure. But whatever we love the most, that is the love that controls all the other loves. What Jesus says is that there's a treasure out there that has your heart. It's not a question of if, it's which one. There is a treasure, and your heart is following it. And by the way, your life follows your heart, always. You can't have your heart chasing after a treasure while your life goes somewhere else. It doesn't work that way, right? So here's your treasure, and your heart is following after it, and so does your life. And so it becomes your focus. Whether you even realize it or not, it becomes the lens through which you understand everything else about your life, and it fills your life, and it takes control of your life. And this is what Jesus is saying in these next couple of verses that sound very strange to us because we're so far removed from that time and culture. But he says in verse 22, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So in ancient Jewish thought, your eyes were intimately connected to your heart. Whatever you were looking at was going to fill your heart. And so if your eyes were good, you were looking figuratively at light, what is good, what is holy. So you're looking at the light, and then it fills you with light. But if your eyes are bad, then you're looking at darkness, and it fills you with darkness. And what he's really describing here, we could call obsession. What are you looking at? What are your eyes focused on? What are you devoted to? What is all consuming in your life? You ever fall in love with somebody? If you're married, hopefully it's the person sitting next to you. And you were so consumed by them, right? All consumed by them, and you were so in love, and all you thought about, all you dreamed about was your life with them. And it shaped everything else in your world. You didn't think about your parents in the same way, or where you were gonna live, or the job you were gonna have. Like all of it went through this lens of this person that you were so desperate to be with, all consumed by them. It could be something that you accomplish. It could be something that's a goal that you have, that all of your world revolves around this obsession to accomplish this, to achieve this. It could be something that you want to purchase. You have something that you just latched onto and thought, I won't be happy until I own this. I remember the first time I bought my first car, and it was a 2006 used Honda Civic. And they say that a sucker is born every minute, and I was that sucker that day. And so I walked into the dealership, and I'm pretty sure that they saw me coming a mile away. Because what I didn't understand about buying a car was that I had researched the car. I understood everything about the car and why I wanted that car. What I didn't understand was the process of buying a car and the negotiations and all the games that are being played. And so I walked in, and what he saw, I'm sure, in my eyes was, I want that car. And he thought, cha-ching. Because I'm pretty sure I fell for every trick in the book. He just kept, adding money to it, and I just kept saying yes, because as far as I was concerned, I was there to buy that car. And see, whatever you become obsessed with, focused on, even if it's just for an afternoon buying a car, at that point you lose sight of everything else. Whatever your eyes are fixed on, that will fill you up. It will take over your life. It will saturate all of your being. And you will serve it. And you're focused on it, and we always serve. We always chase after whatever our greatest love is. And Jesus says in verse 24, no one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. See, there's a lot of things that we can collect and that we can treasure. But money has a unique pull on our lives. Money has a unique way of competing with God for our hearts, because money does the greatest God impression of anything else, right? Money mimics God. Money says, you don't need God because I will give you everything that you need. And money says, oh, do you want to have security? Well, you can buy that. And you want to know that you have power? Well, you can write a big enough check. You want to know that you're valuable? Look at your bank account. You want to have pleasure and comfort? Well, there's nothing that money can't buy. And so money competes with God for our hearts, because money the whole time is saying, you don't need God. You can be God. Well, if money is what makes you God, then what does that make money? Money is your God. You will have to chase after money in order to allow it to give you your delusions of grandeur, that you can be God for yourself. And so we can chase after money. And one of the ways that we can subtly deceive ourselves in this, and this, by the way, this is one of the oldest tricks in the book when it comes to religion, is to see our wealth as a reflection of our godliness. To see the accumulation of wealth as evidence that God must really love me. I must be great. God must be so tight because look at how he has blessed me financially. And we can spiritualize our greed. But wealth is never a reflection of our relationship with God. The only thing that's a reflection of our relationship with God is how you use the wealth that you have, whether a lot or a little. See, being wealthy doesn't make you godly, but neither does being poor. It doesn't mean that you're godly. And so some people will try to twist this. And they'll try to take what Jesus says here and kind of, add a little wrinkle to it to make it more palatable. And they'll say, well, see, our relationship with God isn't reflected in our wealth. And so what that means is it doesn't matter how I use my money so long as I love God over here. But Jesus' whole point is that you cannot love God and love money at the same time. That you have to be using your money to love God. However much you have, whether it's a little or a lot, that is what reveals your true master. That's what reveals where your heart really is. So you can either use your money to serve God, or you can use God to serve your money. and it's easy to get confused. But it's one or the other. You cannot serve both, and they're mutually exclusive. And see, what's interesting is that Jesus' audience, the crowds that's listening to him right here now, they're not wealthy. For the most part, these would have been people that were poor, the marginalized. These are people that actually could have used probably more money just to get by. These were not the affluent people, building, extra vacation homes and buying multi-million-dollar yachts. These were people who really needed to know that they would have their needs met. And yet, even then, Jesus says, your life is not for money. Like the purpose of your life is not just to have money. And see, the temptation is to say, but if I just had a little bit more, then all of my problems would go away. If I just had a little bit more. But see, that's always the lie of money, right? Just a little bit more. Ask Jeff Bezos how much he needs. The answer is a little bit more. Elon Musk did not just get that payout because he was content with $35 billion. He needed $45 billion, right? He just needs a little bit more. There's always a little bit more that we need. And what Jesus says is don't trust in the little bit more. Trust that God will provide for what you need, and don't worry about what you don't have. Therefore, I tell you, he says in verse 25, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? I love that question. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. I was thinking about this passage and thinking about worry. And I wondered about the distinction between fear and worry and anxiety, because they're all very much sort of interrelated and they seem very similar. And I found this explanation of worry that I thought was really good. It says, worry is a mental state characterized by repetitive and often uncontrollable thoughts about potential negative outcomes or problems that may occur in the future. And see, this is the key part. It's in the future. And so you're living in the present, but you're worried about something that has not happened yet, and you're playing through all the different possible scenarios of how things could go wrong. It involves a cognitive process where an individual ruminates over possible scenarios, risks, or uncertainties, typically related to specific concerns or issues. So one of the ways that this can be different from fear, and I'm going to use fear in a healthy sense, is that fear is very concrete. Fear is happening in the present. Fear, healthy fear, is that's a bear that's about to eat me. Like that's healthy fear. You should be afraid of the bear. Fear, healthy fear, is the building is on fire, we should get out. That's healthy fear. And then on the other side, the other extreme, is anxiety. And anxiety is unhealthy because it's not actually attached to anything in particular. It's just a pervading sense of dread and of panic. And it's overwhelming and debilitating. See, worry occupies kind of an in-between space, because worry is connected to something that's specific, an issue that's in front of you, but it is not a threat in the present. It is a possibility of what it could be in the future. And so for some of us, for some people, we worry about very specific things. And so some people are worriers, and some people, we worry on occasion. And so some of us, we worry about an issue at work because we see it, we anticipate things could go bad, and so we worry about those things, but it's connected to a particular time frame that is probably not that long. And so you see an issue, and then it's solved, and at that point you stop worrying about it, and you move on with life. And maybe you go find something else to worry about. That's possible. But there are some of us that we we are worriers. It becomes a perpetual state of being because there are so many things to worry about. And the problem is that oftentimes the things that we worry the most about are things that are not going to end anytime soon. So they're concrete, they exist, but there's no end in sight. So you can worry about an upcoming election, but guess what? There's always going to be another election. And you can worry about your kids, but your kids are always going to have another crisis in the future. You can worry about your finances, but your finances are always going to take a hit somewhere along the way. And so the list goes on. And the whole time we are worrying, we are playing out possible scenarios, worst case possibilities for how this could play out. What if this, what if this, what if this? All of it, not in the present, but actually in the future. But you exist in the present, not the future. You exist in the present. See, unlike God, who exists outside of time and space, God creates time, God creates space. We are part of time and space. What's so interesting is that as humans, because we are made in the image of God, one of the ways that we reflect God is not that we exist outside of time and space, but we can actually inhabit past, present, and future. We can imagine it. Now, in one sense, physically, our existence, we are here only in the present, but we can remember the past, and we can anticipate the future. And the danger is that we can become lost in the past or the future, and we can lose sight of the present. Have you ever known somebody who got stuck in the past? And every time you talk to them, it's what might have been. They wish things were back the way that they used to be. Things haven't changed, or they have changed, and they wish everything was back the way it was before, and they get stuck in the past, and they can no longer see the potential of the future or the beauty of the present. And I've known so many people who've gotten stuck in the past, and because of that, they have wasted their present, and they've lost sight of their future. And I'll be honest, that's not my problem. I live in the future. Carrie is the one who keeps me grounded in the present. She is God's gift to me. Because I love to think about the future. I love to dream about the future. I long to imagine the future and how it's better than the present. But the danger is that if that faith in what the future could be turns negative, it becomes worry. And at that point, those dreams are no longer dreams. Now they're nightmares. And we can get lost in the overwhelming worry of all the things that might be and what could possibly happen, and we lose sight of the beauty of the present. We get lost in what today holds for us. And Jesus, he says, stop worrying about what might happen. Don't get lost in the worry. There's a great quote in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar where it says, a brave person dies but once, but a coward dies 1,000 times. And see, I've joked for years that this is a picture of worry, that we worry about all these scenarios and we play them out, thousands and thousands and thousands of hypothetical situations, and we're worried, and maybe one of them happens, but we've already died 1,000 times. We've already carried that emotional weight of worrying about all the things that might have come to pass instead of enjoying and appreciating today, because today is the gift. And Jesus says, stop worrying about that because today is enough. Verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. He's saying, look, when you seek God's kingdom in the present, right, then everything that you need, this is what he said right before this, everything that you need will be given to you. Like God is going to supply that you need, all that you need in the here and the now. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Now, I admit that the first time you read this, it doesn't sound very encouraging. It's like Jesus saying, don't worry about tomorrow. I mean, it could be bad, but today is bad enough. That's quite the pep talk. Thank you, Jesus. I feel so much better. You're right, today is awful. That's not what he's saying. Because right before this, remember, he has just said that God supplies our every need. Right before this, he says that God supplies what we need when we need it, and that's the key. It's when we need it. It's in the present, because we only exist in the present. See, God, he exists outside of time and space. I'm not trying to blow your minds here, but just hang with me. God exists outside of time and space. So yes, for God, the past, the present, the future, all of it right there. And so in that sense, God is always there to meet us in the present, but we only occupy the present. And as soon as we step into the future, well, that's actually the present. And so God, understand, when he meets our needs, he doesn't meet it in the future. He meets them in the present. It's where you are now that he meets your needs, not before. It's now. It's when you need it. Last year, I was trying to help my daughter, Eleanor learn to swim. Several of us tried and failed. And she's doing much better this year. But she would get in the pool, and I would hold her, kind of stomach and legs and hold her up above the water, or just barely floating on the water. And she would freak out. And she's panicking. And if I could imagine the thoughts going around in her head, it would have been, don't let me drown, don't let me drown, don't let me drown. And what I would have said to her is, I can't not let you drown because you're not drowning. You're floating. Like, I'm holding you right here. Like, I can't save you from drowning before you're drowning. Now, if I let go, now I can save you, right? Now you're sinking and you're drowning. Now I'll save you. But I can't save you when drowning is just in your head. It's just something that you're imagining. I can't save you until it actually happens. So we do the same thing with God, where we say, God, I'm looking at all these things that I'm worried about. Save me, save me, save me. And he says, I can't save you from hypotheticals. Not even God can save you from something that only exists in your mind. Now, when you get there and there's an actual problem, guess what? He's already there, ready to meet you, ready to provide whatever you need. And so instead of worrying about all the things that have yet to happen, that God cannot save you from because they don't exist except in your mind, trust that when you step into the future and that becomes your present and there are real needs, God is already there. He's waiting for you. He's been there the whole time. And he will supply all that you need. But I love this question. I want to go back that Jesus asks. He said, isn't life more than what you wear or what you eat? Right? And he's calling them out. He's like, don't you realize that life is about more than survival? It's about more than just food. It's about more than just clothes. Don't you realize that life is more than just getting by, that you were created for so much more than this? And even the birds and the flowers, they get it. Why don't you? See, your life is more than just what you can put on the table. Your life is more than what you wear. Your life is more than your bank account. Your life is more than the job that you get. It's more than the title that you have. It's more than the car that you drive, or the house that you live in, or the vacation that you can take, because your life is more important than things that will not outlive your life. See, anything that won't outlive you, that's a terrible investment on your life. If you get wrapped up in clothes, let's just be honest here for a second, clothes go in and out of style so fast, who knows, right? Like, it doesn't last. And you can be all cut up in your bank account and having enough savings, it's probably losing value right now as we speak. Maybe it's the stock market, it's going up. Who knows? You can't control those things, but I can promise you they're not going to outlive you. And then if you can be as successful as you can imagine with your job and getting promotions and achieving things, but it will take very little time after you're gone that no one will remember or care. And so don't invest your life in things that will not outlive you, because this life cannot contain all that your life is for. Your life is for so much that only eternity can contain it all. When I was growing up, I was going to church, and so I'm going to own this, though. I'm not going to blame my church. I'm not going to blame other people who were teaching me. But somewhere along the line, I decided that life and faith were disconnected. And as best I could tell, God just wanted me to be good. And as long as I was good, then I could just sort of live whatever life I wanted. And so I set out to create my own future and to build the life that I wanted. And I got good grades, and I went to a good school. And like I said before, I learned pretty quick, because that was about as far and as well as I was going to do. And so I got into college and realized that I really didn't know what my life was for. And so I changed my major 3 or 4 times, and I kept trying different things, and I was like, is this it? Is this all my life is for? There's got to be more than this, but I didn't know where to look. And yet at the same time, I knew that I had a relationship with God. And I knew that I wanted to know him more. And so it came to the graduation. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my life is for. I guess I'll become a missionary, which sounds really weird, I know. But it really wasn't very noble. Like I wasn't like, ooh, I want to go serve God. It was more like, I don't know what to do, but I mean, I'm a Christian and I'll get to live in Europe. That sounds nice. And I'll get to tell people about Jesus, which I'm happy to do. But it was mostly, I just didn't have a plan for my life because I didn't know what my life was for. But while I was there, that first year living in Italy, it's a beautiful place to be. Maybe because I didn't have anything else to do. Maybe because for the first time I wasn't trying to achieve anything, there was nothing to achieve. But for the first time, I really began to pursue God. And I began to pray in ways that I never prayed before. I began to read his word for the first time, really trying to understand who is this God. And I had to. I was talking to other people about Jesus and they had questions. And so I began to search the scriptures and I began to pray and ask God, what is my life for? And then the strangest thing happened. He got hold of my life in a whole new way. And I honestly can't explain it. I can't describe it. It was just like at some point, it was like everything changed for me when I realized that Jesus was my everything. When I realized that he is the one I'd been looking for all along. I was trying to figure out what my life was for, and all the time he was right there. Like my life was for him. And so at that point, everything in my life changed. And I remember I was standing at this piazza one night, it's probably like in May. And up to this point, if anyone asked me, what are your future plans? What are you going to do next year? I was like, I'm going back to the States. I'm going to go to law school, and this is my plan. And at some point, like all of this shifted in this moment. Like I'm standing there in a piazza, and somebody's like, so you're still thinking about law school next year? And I was like, no, I'm coming back. And it was like surprised me as I said it. Like I didn't even know where it came from. I was like, no, I just want to be closer to Jesus, and I feel like I'm meeting Jesus here, so I'm staying because I need Jesus to overhaul my life. I need him to change me. And he began to change me from the inside out in ways that I never could have imagined. Maybe some of you remember there was this terrible song years ago. I only remember it because it was so awful, by Barbara Streisand and Bryan Adams. And the last line of the chorus was, my life has just begun, I finally found someone. And I remember hearing that line for the first time and thinking, that has got to be one of the worst lines ever. I mean, just horrible. My life has just begun. I finally found someone. How lame. What a loser, right? But can I tell you, in a weird way, that's exactly what happened to me. Then when Jesus got a hold of my life and I really began to seek him and to pursue him, and I saw him maybe for the first time, when I look back, I'm like, man, that's when my life really began. He began to change me and remake me and reshape me, and he has not stopped since. And so I know you can't really tell looking at me because I'm getting older and I have no hair, and if I did, it would be gray. But I'm telling you, on the inside, my soul, man, I'm better than ever. Like God just keeps working on me, and it's not always fun. It's not always pleasant. It is painful at times, but I am better than ever. Man, I am so sure of who God has created me to be. I have so much confidence what he is doing in me and in my future. I have peace, I have confidence, I have creativity, I have passion, I have excitement. And my best days are ahead of me. I'm not afraid of the future. I'm looking forward to the future, whatever comes. It doesn't matter what comes, because what I know with confidence is that he who began a good work in me is not going to let it end until he's done making me into who he's created me to be. And see, when Jesus becomes your treasure, when he becomes your greatest love, then you don't have to settle for mere existence any longer. When he is your greatest love, when he is your treasure, then for the first time you will discover who you actually are. And you'll begin to discover what your life is actually for. And see, I believe with every fiber of my being that God has created you to make an eternal difference in the world. That he's created you to have an eternal impact on the lives of the people around you. See, to have a life of faith, it's not something where we just come on Sunday once a week or once a month or whenever we feel like it. It is to have a life that is devoted to God and what he is doing in the here and now, not just part of us, but all of us. All of our other treasures serve him. He is the treasure. Everything else is focused on him. Everything else pales in comparison. He is our obsession because he's the only obsession that actually creates life and goodness. And when our lives are wrapped around his, and we are pursuing him, then he changes us and he works in us and through us to create good in the world. And can I tell you, the most practical way for us to invest in what God is doing here in the world, the most practical way for us to invest in God's eternal kingdom is to invest in people. Because God's kingdom and his heart are always for people. It's why Jesus came, to rescue us from the kingdom of darkness and move us into the kingdom of light. I mean, can you just imagine for a moment how great the impact would be if we were to see our relationship with God not as something that's just private, that we keep to ourselves and we kind of hide from other people, but we actually saw it as an opportunity, as a calling to share what God has done in our lives with the people around us. What if we were to begin to export the values of God's kingdom? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, faithfulness, all of these, if we were to begin to export them into the world and into the lives of those around us, how great would the impact of our lives be in this community, right? Just the 10-mile radius that we talk about around Easton, where we live, where we work, where we go to school, where we go to the swim club, where we just do life. How great would that impact be if we began to see our eternal significance, not in what we can collect and what we can chase, but in the value that we can add in the lives of others. See, that's the future that I'm dreaming of. That's the future that I believe God is calling us to create. But we will never step into that future if we are overwhelmed with worry for ourselves. I know that there are some of you here and you are carrying the burden of worry. And you are worried about so many things. And listen, I get it. There are things that make me pretty darn nervous. And we worry about our kids and we worry about the economy, you worry about the climate when it's 100 degrees in New Jersey, you worry about the politicians and what the heck they're doing, and you worry about all these different things, and I get it. You are not alone. We worry because we care. But there's a difference between healthy concern and a crushing worry that sucks the joy out of life so that we can no longer see the beauty of the present and the potential of the future. See, if you're carrying that burden of worry around, the weight of that, I want you to know that Jesus, he wants to take that burden from you. He doesn't want you to have to carry it anymore. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus, he says that he wants to take this burden from us, that we can give all of our burdens to him. And I love the translation and the message, how it reads. He says, are you tired? This is Jesus speaking to you. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. What an invitation. See, when you give your life to Jesus, what that includes is all of your worries, all of your burdens. You lay it all down and you give it to him because he is the one who can handle it. He's the one who can carry it like it's nothing. And when you see how Jesus treasures you, how he loves you, that he was willing to come and to give his life for you, to endure excruciating pain because he treasures you, then you can lay your worries down because you don't have to be worried like that. You can be concerned. You can have your moments. There's no escaping them, but that we continue to lay them at his feet because he can handle them. You are loved. You are secure. You are safe. He's got you. When he becomes your greatest treasure, he is your greatest love. When your eyes are fixed on him, oh, you have the best eyes. And he will fill you with light and life. He will fill you with his spirit. His life come to life in you. I just want to ask you a question. If you've never trusted Jesus like that, if you've never given your life to him and trusted him for the forgiveness of your sins, there's no greater burden than that. and for all the things that you worry about, everything from the past regrets that you carry around to the future that you don't know what that holds. If you've never handed those things over to him and trust him for a future that you cannot create, the hope of eternal life, what would hold you back? Why wouldn't you want to give your life to him that way? The one who will take all of your worry and carry it for you. Don't wait for tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow brings. Tomorrow is just the future. We'll get there when we get there. It might be beautiful, it might not. Don't know. But right now, this is the present. This is the moment. What would keep you from giving your life to Jesus today? Would you just bow your heads with me? I just want to pray for you and together. Lord, thank you that you want to carry our burdens and you take them from us if we will just surrender them. But we don't like to. Just admit that we get so used to carrying our worry around, it becomes like this comfortable bag that we carry, and if we didn't have it, we wouldn't even know who we are anymore. And so, Lord, give us the courage and the strength even to just to lay it down, to see that you treasure us, that you love us more than we can imagine, and that you would be our greatest treasure so that we don't have to worry about all the other treasures that we might carry with us, and instead we give them all to you. Lord, shape our lives, reshape our lives around you. Let's be wholly devoted to you, that we would be a changed people from the inside out, that we would see the beauty of today and the potential of tomorrow when we follow you, that we can invest in your kingdom with return that is beyond measure when we invest and add value in the lives of the people around us. Lord, help us to be that kind of light. Lord, if there's anyone here who's never given their lives to you, I pray that they would not wait for what they do not know. We don't know what even the next moment holds, but right now, in this moment, in this present, Lord, that they would have the courage to say, Jesus, I give you my life. I've been trying to save myself. I've been trying to build my own future. I've been carrying around this worry and this burden of sin for too long, and I want to lay it down. So, Jesus, I give you all of me. I give you my life. You can say that. You can pray that to him right now. And you will begin a new journey. The journey of life is meant to be lived. Jesus, I give you my life. He hears you. Lord, help us to follow you. Help us to look more like you. Help us to love like you. We pray all this in your name. Amen.